Meantime, the death toll from mass shootings in this country rose again this weekend. At least 6 people were killed and several others were wounded after multiple gun attacks in at least 3 states. And it comes after 8 people died just last week after a gunman opened fire at an Indianapolis FedEx facility. Laura Podesta has the latest on what officials are saying.
I can confirm that there are 3 people that have died from this shooting.
The surge in gun violence across the country continued this weekend with a handful of violent incidents. In Wisconsin, a shooting at a bar in Kenosha County.
It sounds like one person got removed from the establishment and possibly came back a short time later.
Also over the weekend in Austin, Texas.
I guess it's our neighborhood, so that's really scary.
3 people were killed in an apartment complex. Authorities called this an isolated domestic incident. The suspect this morning is still on the run. And overnight, a drive-by shooting in Shreveport, Louisiana sent 5 victims to the hospital.
Gun violence in this country is an epidemic. Let me say it again. Gun violence in this country is an epidemic.
The chief medical officer to President Biden agrees.
It's just been horrifying what's happened. How can you say that's not a public health issue?
Last month, the House passed 2 bills enhancing background checks.
The bills that pass the House are bills that are supported by the majority of the country, including Republicans, including gun owners. So there is no reason not to pass the legislation.
Those bills, though, which make background checks mandatory for all gun sales and transfers, are stalled in the Senate and face an uncertain future.
And in the past month alone, Anne-Marie, there have been 54 mass shootings nationwide. To remind you, a mass shooting is defined as an incident where 4 or more people are shot.
I'm glad you added in that definition because I think sometimes we come out with the numbers and people don't realize that only a handful of these mass shootings actually rise to the level of national coverage. A lot of them are just covered in the local area, and so you don't realize how many there are. You mentioned in the story how gun legislation has stalled in the Senate. We also saw in your story President Biden and Dr. Anthony Fauci talk about this being a crisis. Is there any suggestion that perhaps some of this legislation will be revived and there could be some movement in Congress?
So there's mounting pressure, Anne-Marie, but there is no timeline at this moment. We know that Democratic senators, Chris Murphy and Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, both of them have proposed perhaps narrowing the legislation in the Senate, and maybe that sort of bill would pass. But we have not received any formal timeline. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, also a Democrat, he has vowed to take up gun legislation. But again, we don't know exactly when it will be taken up. And it would be difficult to pass. We know at least 60 senators need to say yes. So that means all Democrats have to be on board, plus they need to get 10 Republicans as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a long shot for sure. Laura, thank you so much.